You know, as we get into the summertime, different activities start to pick up, and there's becomes more concerns such as motorcycles now on the road, more pedestrians out and about doing things, pools start to open. There's just so many other activities that start to kick into gear now that people are finally able to get out of their house and do some activities that they want to get out and do. So it's just being able to try to reinforce the safety aspects of all those different activities and things we need to start to pay attention to again, because we've been in hibernation for the last several months, 6 months.
Have you been seeing those emergencies kind of pick up in the past week, or?
Well, I mean, anytime you get the warmer temperatures and the warmer weather and more people start to get out and about, you might see more accidents, the motorcycle accidents, the bicyclists on the road. You got to pay attention to more. And now with the pools going to be opening probably here at the end of the month, you start worrying about the safety at the pools. Kids walking out and about playing rather than being in school all day. Now they're going to be out playing once school lets out. So those are all things we want to remind people that this is all going to start happening. And so we just want to make sure people are paying a little more attention, get out of their cell phone as they're driving, and just pay attention to what's around them.
In terms of Memorial Day weekend, do you guys have a particular focus, or are you going to have extra patrols out?
Memorial Day weekend is obviously another holiday. This is probably the first holiday of the summer, so I wouldn't say we're going to have extra patrols, but it's definitely, again, this is a big start. And the reason why we want to push this out today is because there's going to be a lot of picnics. There's going to be a lot of cookouts and fires. A lot of people like to have bonfires. So there's all kinds of activities that start to take place that you need to start paying attention a little more. You know, maybe a little more pay attention to how much you're drinking and driving, or as you're out and about. So everything comes into play. So we just want to make sure everybody's a little more careful, especially during this time.
Is there going to be extra police out on Memorial Weekend?
No extra police. Business as normal.
In terms of people, I mean, I think we always ask you this, but I usually ask this when activities are going on. People are driving to a destination. You've got to remind people to lock their cars as well.
That seems to be the main focus, making sure you're locking your car up, make sure you don't leave the keys in it, leave it running. Especially, you know, one thing too is as the warmer temperatures kick in, as the cars start to get warmer, the sun beats down on them, they become little ovens. So we want to make sure that, you know, if you have pets or things like that, that a lot of people like to take their pets for rides and things of that nature. So as if they stop somewhere, make sure if that dog's in there or that pet or the child, make sure that you don't leave them in there in a hot, warm car. Some people have automatic starters, which makes it a little easier to leave that car running because there's no keys in it, and they can leave the air conditioning going, which is a good thing. But if somebody sees or sees a vehicle that has a situation like that, they need to call 911 so we can get there and get it taken care of right away, so that there's not an issue there.
What is the number one thing maybe you look for this weekend or expect? I know you mentioned pools, people driving because people are traveling. Is there any other advice you have for just people out and about on Memorial Day weekend?
Just be careful. I mean, think about the things that can happen and the possibilities that are out there. I think sometimes we get caught up into everything that we're doing, and it's all great. We want to have a good time, but just keep the safety in mind as well. I know the fire department's here. They're going to talk a little bit about some of the fire aspect safety issues. Conservation's here. Talk about there's going to probably be a lot of people out on boats this weekend. So that's kind of why we got everybody here too, because there's different topics that we are able to address. And a lot of times alcohol gets in the mix with a lot of this, and it causes some issues too. So you want to make sure you're paying attention to your alcohol consumption and be safe about it and be responsible.
And I know it's Memorial Day. We were discussing this in the newsroom. Fireworks are not allowed, correct, in the city of Davenport?
There is an ordinance. We actually have the sheet here. It has changed a little bit. Correct. Especially this weekend, fireworks are not allowed. I believe they've limited it to like the 3rd, 4th, 5th of July, and it's very limited hours. We'll get that to you. I think we have that information here for you, so you can take that, so you can actually post that when those hours are, but it's definitely not allowed this weekend.
Okay. And in terms of enforcing that, I mean, I'm sure somewhere people may break that rule. How can people expect that to be enforced?
Probably if they're seeing them, to call 911, and we'll have an officer respond and handle the situation at hand, whatever that might be.
Perfect.
I've got a question in terms of parents. We're just at the very beginning, and for some parents and kids, we're not even into the summer yet, right? Kids aren't quite out of school. And so the question is, what advice do you give parents as they look ahead to summer and how they schedule and do things with their kids?
Wow. Parenting 101. As children, as they get out of school and they're going to be running around the neighborhoods, playing, probably the biggest thing is know where your children are. Make sure your children are checking in. Make sure they're telling you where they're going. If they change that location, they need to let you know that they've moved to a different location. It's very, very important. And I think the thing to express to kids is it's not just a matter of that you know where they are, but if there was an emergency at home with the parent, they may need to be able to make sure they can reach the child to let them know there was an emergency. So it's a two-way thing, and it's just kind of building that respect and that relationship with your children, that it's important that we all know where we're going, where we're at, who we're with. Those are all important things for parents to know and understand, and for the kids to understand that that's important as well. So it's just paying attention to where they're at and knowing at all times, so that if something were to happen, that contact can be made. And I think, especially with young children, teaching them, most kids refer to mom and dad as mom and dad. But if we run into a child, what's your mom and dad's name? And sometimes that's a very difficult question. So especially younger children, make sure you're teaching your young children what your names are, especially the last name, and maybe try to get them to memorize phone numbers. We have cell phones that most of us can't rattle off different phone numbers anymore because we just go directly to our phone. So if they can actually learn that phone number, it's a good thing as well as their address. So those are all things to start teaching young children as they're going to be out playing. So if we need to contact somebody, we can.
You know, for a long time, there was that whole idea of warning kids about, stranger danger, right? And is that still a practice, and especially going into the summer months when there are more people out in the neighborhoods and more different people out in the neighborhoods?
Definitely. I mean, teaching your children that, again, don't talk to strangers. If somebody's asking for directions, keep a safe distance. Don't approach any vehicles, especially if they're trying to give you something. You don't take anything from a stranger. So if somebody tries to approach you, run, ask for help, whatever it may be. It's just the world that we live in today, that you have to instill those precautions and make sure that they understand what their role is and what they need to do if they're approached by a stranger. So definitely something they need to be aware of. Try to make sure your children are never alone. Kind of the buddy system. Always be with another child or another friend, so that they're not all by themselves while they're out riding their bike or playing or traveling to a friend's house. If you have to walk them to your friend's house, walk them to their house. That's just the world we live in today.
And it's still okay to do that, right? It's still okay to be a kid.
Absolutely, it's still okay to be a kid. I'm still a kid.
So talk a little bit about this weekend. I mean, I think the Quad Cities area, we've had quite a few fires actually in the last few weeks. But talk about, the start of summer and Memorial Day weekend in general. People are going to be out camping, I'm sure having bonfires and stuff like that. So what are your main concerns?
Right. This does kick off kind of the summer events. We're winding down with school and everything. Everybody's excited. It's already starting to get warmer. So some of the other considerations we'll have is hydrating. Just making sure everybody's got water ahead of time. When we're too thirsty or we stop sweating, it's already too late. So you want to be thinking ahead of what we're going to do. Do we pack enough good nutrition, water, all those things, and keep that in mind outside of the busyness of the activities we're doing.
Okay, perfect. And I mean, obviously, it's going to be hot this weekend.
Right.
Any other recommendations in terms of, we kind of touched on it, kids in cars,
Right.
pets in cars, stuff like that?
Yep, it's a big one even with the pets outside, making sure they have plenty of water. Again, reminding everyone to look in the vehicles, making sure we're not leaving the kids in the vehicles, pets in the vehicles, even if it's a quick trip, even if it's a quick running in the store. Something can always change to happen. This weekend also, to help kick things off, Davenport Fire is doing car seat inspections on Saturday morning from 9 to noon. So with all those busy activities for the caregivers to stop in, make sure that they've got the proper car seats set up for the kids. We're there to help this weekend, partnering with Medic and Rock Island Fire on those alternate weekends. So we're gonna be doing that all summer long.
And talk a little bit about how important that is for kids and parents in general.
Right? There's a lot of considerations. The training our technicians have gone through, it covers a lot of things. So it's not just one car seat that works. It's not one vehicle, not one locations. There's a number of things we have to consider, and we do our best to educate the caregivers on proper location, things they can, when the kids start growing, what changes, and then we give little pointers. You know, we don't need to have cell phones when we're driving. So let's place that in the back seat. Let's put a purse back there. Let's put a wallet back there to kind of help remind us that the kids are back there and we need to keep an eye on things because more kids are not going to be in school anymore and we're moving around, and that's what we want to help out with.
And in terms of any other advice for people, especially on this weekend and going into the summer months, what would that be?
Just slowing down. Slowing down, arrive safe, communicate. Talk about where your destination is going to be, especially if it's out of town. If we're doing some traveling this weekend, letting our friends and loved ones know where we're going, when we're leaving, so they can expect us. Making sure we're doing proper maintenance on our vehicles, checking the tires, all those little things so we're not having those hiccups along the way with the roads. And then just sharing that roadway.
Okay, we already know about, we talked to Mark about the fireworks aren't good this weekend, but you know, just like he knows, there's gonna be people doing it because we already know that people have been doing it. What are you telling people?
Okay, we're starting to approach that season, and we'll be getting to July sooner than later. Just being aware, having the adults being in charge of discharging the fireworks when it is that appropriate time. Little considerations about having garden hoses, maybe a bucket of water, something available. If a firework doesn't go off, to go ahead and leave it alone. It's a dud, but something could happen. So we want to make sure you water those things down. Now it's a little ahead of that time, but people are itching to have those outdoor activities, so to be safe. Also with that, we could have bonfires, recreational fires. The same parameters will follow with those things, where you want to have that garden hose in place in case something gets away from us. We want to be attending those things at all times, making sure we're aware of what's going on, and making sure that fire is out when we're done, and being safe in those regards. It's fun to have, but we have to be responsible with all those things.
There's a couple things I want to cover with the start of Memorial Day weekend. That's the unofficial or official start of boating season, however you want to look at it. We're going to have a lot of boats on the water. We have to keep in mind that we need to have the appropriate safety gear on board at all times when we're out there, specifically life jackets. Have life jackets anytime you're around the water, whether you're working on docks, different things like that, or you're just going to be on the water, pleasure boating, different things. Make sure you have the appropriate size life jacket for each person on board the vessel. So don't have an adult extra large for a young child on board. They'll just slip through if they do need that for an emergency. Make sure you have the fire extinguisher. Make sure you check the fire extinguisher that it hasn't expired over the winter. Make sure you have a signal device, horn, whistle. Whistles are great because no matter if they get wet or anything like that, they're still going to work. The electric horns, sometimes the wires go out, and the air horns, sometimes they just expel the air and then they don't work when you need them. So whistles are great. You can attach them right to your life jacket. You always have them on board. Keep in mind the water is still a little elevated out there. So with that, you have a lot of debris under the water surface that is floating down. Anytime we have flooded conditions, it pulls a lot of the debris off the shoreline into the water channel, and then as the water starts to go down, that is dispersed back along the water's edge. But there's still debris floating down the center of the channel. So just because you do not see a tree floating down the channel, don't assume that there's nothing under the surface. So keep an eye out anywhere you're going on the water this weekend and throughout the entire summer.
And in terms of, you mentioned the 74 bridge construction, talk a little bit about any advice and warnings you have for boaters out there.
Yes, in Pool 15, which is Bettendorf Leach Park, you've got them constructing the new 74 bridge. With that construction, they have a lot of workers out there working all hours of the day. They're running boats. They've got a heavy equipment out there. They've got cranes moving beams into place. avoid boating through the construction zone where they're actively working. So as you're going under the existing 74 bridge, stay to the center of the channel. That will help everybody out so that you're not impeding them with the construction efforts. And they're able to do their jobs where when they're swinging a metal beam or pouring cement, they're not worried about a vessel coming through that might get in the way or have an incident, injury, or accident.
And I know you can't talk about specific cases, but recently we have had searches for someone who was just cleaning their boat or getting in their boat. Talk about just being safe in general around your boat.
Yeah. Anytime you're going to be by the water, whether you have young children and you're just going to be fishing along the shore, keep in mind to have a life jacket on them, or anyone to have a life jacket or at least a throwable device with the person. Because if you're around water and dirt, that creates mud. It's going to be slippery. You might just unintentionally get close to even pull a fish out, grab something, a piece of driftwood or something from the water. You're working on a dock, a vessel, anything you might have, you're going to be close to that water. It just takes one mishap to actually end up in the water. So if you have something in place ahead of time, specifically with kids, they tend to panic as soon as they hit the water. The parent goes in after them. Have something on them. If they're under 13 and no matter how strong of a swimmer, they're required by law to have a life jacket while they're on a boat. But even on shore, have them wear those life jackets. It just takes a second for you to turn your eye, to grab something, answer a phone call, whatever the case may be, and the child's in the water. Okay? That can be the adult, the child, elderly people. I've seen roll wheelchairs out to the end of docks. There's no life-saving PFDs, life jackets, throwable devices with them. Should anything happen with that wheelchair on the dock, it's going to be very difficult to remove that person. So keep that in mind. Anytime you're around the water, have the safety features with you. Have something that you can throw to somebody. The last thing you want to do is go in the water to rescue somebody, because a lot of times you'll become part of the incident yourself. So therefore, have something you can cast to somebody.
And we talk about drinking and driving a lot around Memorial Day, but also people are out boating, and some people sometimes have a few drinks. Talk about how you should definitely not boat and drive.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, boating is a little different than that of a vehicle, because you can actually consume alcohol while you're operating a boat or out on the river and you're maybe at the beach or you're pleasure boating or you're drifting. You can consume alcohol while you're on the vessel. The key is you still can't be over the legal limit, which is 0.8. But what you need to do is keep in mind that with the higher temperatures and you're out on the water, you're going to dehydrate much quicker than that of being on the shore. So that alcohol, you might be used to drinking 3 beers, is going to affect you much greater on the water than what it would be on land. So keep that in mind. Try to rotate. If you're going to consume alcohol while you're out on the boats or the beaches and different things, rotate water in between your alcohol drink, and designate someone that can operate that vessel that may not be consuming. That's going to be the safest thing. The other consideration to have is when you go out on your vessel, there's often just one person that's capable of operating the vessel, that knows about the vessel. The other friends have no clue how to start it, how the emergency safeties are, where to shut the gas off, how to use the throttle, where the prop, to stay clear of the prop. So make sure somebody else in the vessel has the knowledge to get you back to shore, get you back to the dock, should something happen to the vessel's owner or operator.
We've talked a lot about boating, but also people are going to be out camping. Do you have any advice or warnings for those that are heading out to do that?
Yeah, just keep in mind with the camping. I mean, there's still some high water in some of the campgrounds along the river. So keep that in mind as the high water's there. As they get closer to the water, they're going to sink in the mud a lot more, and they're going to get closer to the water. They might try fishing from the shore, different things like that. Respect the river, respect the campgrounds. Also keep in mind this is a great camping weekend. We're going to have nice temperatures, really warm temperatures. Keep in mind that, there are other people in the campgrounds too, and respect the fact that everybody's out there to have a good time. So keep in mind, if you're out up till midnight, don't have your radio blaring past 10:30. That's the quiet time in the park. Slow it down for everybody. Make sure everybody enjoys the situation at hand and just has a great weekend.
Are you going to be out there this weekend as well? And if so, what are you guys looking for?
I'm going to be on the water. I'll start with the Mississippi River, and then I'm going to be going into our new Lost Grove Lake, making checks of that, and then I'll rotate. And basically, I'm going to do zigzag as needed. I'm going to hit Pool 14, come on, hit Lost Grove, Pool 15, hit Lost Grove, Crow Creek Park, different things, and I'm just going back and forth to pools. I'll be covering the Mississippi River from Muscatine up through Clinton. So I'll be on all aspects of the river this weekend. We're going to be looking for safe operation, make sure everybody's able to stay underway with their vessels. They might get out there and realize they didn't quite charge their battery from the winter enough time, and all of a sudden they're dead afloat out there, they're stranded. With the higher current, their anchor that normally works for the vessel may not hold in the current. So we need to make sure that we have whether it's fire departments in place or us DNR officers. I know Illinois Conservation Police will be out as well, and we'll be patrolling those for making sure everybody's having a safe weekend. So we're going to be working a lot inland and on the river. We're going to go where most of the people are. Not all the docks are in the river right now, so it might be more difficult for some people with different vessels to get on the river this weekend, based on not having a lot of boat ramp accessibility with the higher water. So there might be more at Lost Grove Lake, Crow Creek Lake, Westlake Parks, different areas like that.
I'm assuming there's a protocol in place that if I'm a boater and I'm out on the river and I've got my family and I have boat trouble, what do I do? I'm assuming people know, but can you remind us?
Yes, the most important thing to do is call 911 and let them know where you're at on the river. Try to know exactly where you're at, what pool even will be helpful, because we'll have a lot of people that, hey, we're on the river. I think we put in Davenport. Well, you're not sure. Well, you can put in Davenport on Marquette Street ramp and actually be up the other side of the lock by the Sailing Club or Lindsay Park Marina, any of those. So for us to be able to get to you, or fire departments to be able to get to you to assist you with your needs, it's really great that you know where it is. But always start with 911. If your vessel is equipped with a marine radio, you can contact Marine 16 or Marine 14. The locks monitor that. We, as law enforcement, monitor those radio stations, and we will hear any maydays coming out, if there's a boat dead afloat, if there's a capsized vessel, if there was a collision, whatever the case may be, we will notify that. The Coast Guard also monitors that, and then they put out hourly checks letting all vessels know that are monitoring those stations that, hey, there is an incident at this river marker on the Mississippi River. Please take special note as you're navigating through those areas.
Anything else?
One more thing, if you
Yes.
mind. New Lost Grove Lake. It is a 5-mile-an-hour lake. There is no motor restrictions. However, as posted on the Facebook site for Lost Grove Lake, we've had several vessels driving at high-speed operation all different times of the night. It's not only ruining the lake, but it's going to put further restrictions on everybody out there. So we need them to adhere to the 5-mile-an-hour. Just information if you want to.
Perfect.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Just a couple of things I wanted to touch on, 'cause that kind of reminded me. As we get into the summer, people are going to be out working in the yard, especially Mother's Day's passed. A lot of people did a lot of got their flowers and their plants and all that stuff to do their landscaping. People are mowing grass. As you're working in your yard, one thing to keep in mind is, even though you're home, you need to keep your garage door closed and your doors locked. If you're in the backyard working in the yard, mowing grass, your mower's loud, you can't hear a whole lot that's going on, but unfortunately, it's an opportunity for criminals. They know where you're at because they hear the equipment going, and so then they'll enter your house and take things, possibly your vehicle, if they can get access to your keys, so they can get into that garage, or they can get into your house from the garage, because you have it open because you think you're going in and out frequently, but a lot of times you're out back working or something for hours on end before you even come back around. So make sure you're keeping your house locked up, even though you may be around. You want to make sure you're making your house doors are locked and your garage doors closed, even though that you're home. So keep that in mind. The other thing too is vacations. A lot of people take summer vacations, they travel out of state, they go elsewhere. Make sure that you're, again, letting your neighbors know that a friend or somebody know that they're checking on your house. Make things are secured. Make sure either whether you have somebody pick up your mail so it's not gathering, or your newspapers aren't gathering on the front step. Those are things you want to make sure are covered. If you're going to be gone for a really extended period of time, make sure somebody's maybe going to be mowing your grass so it doesn't, again, looks like somebody's still maintaining it and that somebody's home. Garbage, all that stuff you need to make sure is covered. On top of that, a lot of people, Facebook is a big thing. Don't post live pictures of you on vacation out of state. Here I am, I'm on a beach, everything's great. Well, now you just announced to everybody else that you're out of town. So even though mostly it's your family and friends that are looking at that, but then who else is looking at those pages of everybody else that's seeing them? So make sure you don't post any of those pictures until you're back home. Then you can post all the pictures you want, but don't post live pictures of you out of town. Just something to keep in mind. So be careful of that.